So a lot of people think that the hardest part of photography is buying the right camera. And truthfully, that could not be further from the truth, you know? Back when I first started photography, or when I first started taking it serious, I suppose, I spent a lot of time just, excuse me, I spent a lot of time looking for the right camera, looking for the next thing to buy, trying to find any way that I could other than what I should to make my photo stand out, you know? And I made a lot of mistakes. So I'm hoping today I can share some of the things that I wish I knew back then so that you guys maybe don't have to make those same mistakes. So I've been taking photos and making videos for, as far back as I can remember almost. I used to have one of those camcorders with the mini tapes inside, and me and my buddies used to make like movies and stuff like that. But back then I had no way of like digitizing the film, try to edit it, nor did I even have a computer really. So what we would do is just rewind the tape to whatever part we wanted to cut and then just film over it, and that's how we would edit essentially, you know? And then I got one of those point and shoot cameras, a few of them rather. The Canon PowerShots I remember I had. And I'd make movies, vlogs kind of. I was making vlogs before vlogs were called vlogs. I've got a bunch of them on my YouTube channel that you guys won't see because they're private, because they're embarrassing. But maybe I'll make them public one day. I don't know. Right around the time I was 19 is when I first started approaching it, I guess, as a photographer. I thought to myself, I want to buy an actual camera. And I thought I was going to take it pretty serious at that point. But even still, I remember going to Best Buy and buying my first camera. It was a Canon Rebel T2i. And I had the kit lens, naturally, the 1855. And then I bought myself a 55 to 250 millimeter lens and a little flash. And I had the tiniest little camera bag. And it was just enough gear that it all fit in there. And I was like, I'm stacked. I've got so much gear. I'm so legit, you know? And it looked like one of those like Hello Kitty backpacks on my back, you know what I'm saying? On my back, because it was so small. But I felt like, like a real photographer. And I actually remember being at Best Buy and looking at some of the lenses and seeing like a 50 millimeter 1.2 at Best Buy. And I was like, this costs how much money? I was like, that's insane. Especially considering there was, like a $200 or $300 lens right next to it, and it zoomed. The 50 millimeter was a prime lens. So I was like, why would I get a zoom? Why would I get a lens that doesn't even zoom when the zoom lens is cheaper? Like, that was kind of my mindset at the time. I thought it was counterintuitive, Or, I mean, it is counterintuitive if you don't know what you're looking for. But yeah, in the very beginning, I was, I guess I was more mindful, and I thought to myself, this is all I need right here. I got my 18 to 55 and a 55 to 250, and then I've even got a flash. What more could I possibly need? But then the more I learned about photography, the more I realized that there's a whole world out there of shiny new toys that I'm gonna need to make my photos better. Or at least that's what I thought. And probably 6 months in is when I started really thinking to myself, like, oh, I need to upgrade. I need another camera. I need another lens. I need another light. I need a different light or a different lens or a strap or a new bag. I got to get a bigger bag. And, the list goes on. And truthfully, I don't know at what point I realized that, the gear is nice, but it's not necessarily helping. But that thought did dawn on me at some point. I realized that you don't necessarily need to upgrade all your gear, which is kind of the reason why I shoot on such old cameras today. I'm still shooting on a 5D Mark IV as my main camera, and the camera that I shoot these videos on is a 6D Mark II. And there's a bunch of new cameras out there, but I'm still rocking with these. It's not that I haven't upgraded, but I've upgraded in different aspects. I've gotten other lenses and other lights and other tripods and light stands. I'm not against upgrading, but upgrade where it matters, Don't just focus on buying the new camera, that new toy that all the new YouTubers are talking about today. You know what I'm saying? Think about the gear that you have and what you need and what, what you need it for. You know what I'm saying? Because I bought a lot of stuff and wound up selling it, or, it's sitting somewhere on a shelf here and it looks nice on display, but I probably could have put that money to better use. Because ultimately I didn't need it. I didn't need that other stuff that I got. So to sum that part up, I wish I knew that I didn't necessarily need to buy new gear. I just needed to continue learning about the gear I had so that then I could make a better decision on how to upgrade from there. So I guess the takeaway from that is patience is a virtue, Just be cool, You'll get the new stuff. Just take your time. Another thing I wish I would have understood better when I first started was lighting. And people still ask me this question today. They'll see me taking photos outside, maybe a portrait session or something, and they'll see me set up my softbox and my strobes and stuff, and they'll say, "Why are you using a flash in the daytime?" And then I gotta get into this whole thing where I gotta try to loosely explain how it looks better because the light and the shadows and this and combating the sunlight and whatever. But in the beginning you don't know these things, and like I said, I did buy a flash initially, but I thought that the flash was pretty much just for dark scenarios, and while it is important to light your subject, it's more important just to understand how you're lighting your subject, why you're lighting your subject, and when you're lighting your subject, and at first I just thought to myself, if it's bright, I won't use a flash, and if it's dark, I will use a flash. And then eventually I kind of started learning more about it, and I got like a TTL cord, and I would use my flash in my hand, and then I got a wireless trigger and soft boxes and this and that. But there was a long road that I took between shooting natural light and shooting flash and then shooting off-camera flash, and there's so many steps in between that I feel like most people either skip altogether or take a long time to figure out. I mean, I've got a buddy right now who picked up photography not too long ago, and he kind of completely bypassed natural light photography because he sees what I do on a regular basis with the off-camera lights. And I've told him, take your time, learn how to use natural light before you jump to the off-camera stuff, because while it is nice, you still have to be able to have those fundamental skills. You need to know how to find the available light, because when you're shooting with strobes, you still have to know how to balance that with natural light. At least when you're shooting outdoors, if you're shooting in studio, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, I wish I had taken more time to understand lighting in the beginning. It took me a long time to figure it out. Now listen close, because this next one is important, all right? If you want to be a photographer and just take pictures, that's fine. That's cool. That's fun. But if you're looking to make money off of it, you need to understand that it is a business, and you need to treat it as such. Because there's definitely been a few instances way back in the day where I bit off more than I can chew, and that kind of stuff gets stressful, And I don't have any billboards on the side of the road. All I've got is word of mouth. All I have is, happy customers, or at least I hope happy customers that go on to tell their friends, how good of a job I did or how bad of a job I did. Taking the photo is the easy part. When you go to shoot a wedding, those 8, 9, 10 hours, whatever the case is, that's the easy part. And I don't mean to sound reductive in any way. If any of you have ever shot a wedding, then you know that it's not easy. But compared to what follows, you're just kind of there, you're hanging out, you take a few pictures, you're running around. It is a stressful day, but when you get back home and you have to, organize and store the files and archive the files and back up the files and cull through thousands of photos or videos and edit and make selections and be back and forth with the customer, that's a whole nother story. And if you have multiple jobs all piling on at once, then that becomes, it could become unbearable. I mean, right now, for example, I'm sitting on maybe 4 photo shoots that I've got to edit. I've got another one coming this weekend. And during this time of year, I do a lot of like youth sports portraits, like player portraits. So at this point, I've got dozens of kids that I have to go through and edit. And it's a lot. It's overwhelming, especially considering this isn't even my full-time job, guys. I mean, this is something I do on the weekends. So it's hard to balance, work, family, and photography work, and then content as well, so, but I've learned to manage it throughout the years. But back in the day, you said yes to everything that came through the door, and you didn't know how to organize your own schedule in a way that you could be productive and get those jobs out to those clients within, some type of appropriate way, or even just communicating with the customer. Sometimes you are going to be behind. Sometimes your deadlines are going to be a little late. But if you're able to communicate with the customer in a way that puts you in good standing, or at least even communicate that beforehand and let them know this is what it is. You know, they can hire you or they can move on to the next guy, you know? Yeah, it's a big part of the business. And that's something that you shouldn't take lightly if you're just starting off in this venture. So I guess I'd say start slow, work your way up, figure it out, and slowly start to add more things kind of into your queue and see kind of how you're able to balance that with your regular life, and then go from there. And lastly, for now, creativity, it really is a muscle. You got to keep on trying. You got to keep doing the thing, keep trying different things at that. And when you have an idea, even if it seems as though it might not necessarily work, just give it a shot, try it out. Some of my favorite photos that I've ever taken have been a result of something that I just I threw something at the wall to see if it would stick. I've had random nights, not so much in my older age now, but when I was younger, I had random nights where I'd be up at like 2 a.m. and think to myself, like, I want to do something. And I'd grab my camera, call a couple of friends, and we'd, take a train to Coney Island or something, and we'd have a whole photo shoot. And those were awesome, or even still today, sometimes I'm in studio having a photo shoot, and I know my typical lighting setups. I know what I'm going for. I know what they're going to look like. But every now and then I'll go, let's just try something. And I'll move stuff around, or I'll adjust the settings. I'll pose them in a weird, quirky way or something. And, usually it sucks, but every now and then I'll get I'll get an amazing photo out of it. So, just keep on working that creative muscle. Consistency, what's that old saying? Consistency beats perfection, so long as you're consistent in trying to be creative and trying to make cool new things, then there will be a payoff. It won't just be for no reason. It won't be failed attempts after, well, it will be failed attempts after failed attempts. But that makes the payoff that much better when something actually clicks and you're like, oh, this works. All that to say, you can't be a casual photographer. You're either a photographer or you're a guy with a camera, or a girl with a camera, whatever the case is. But you can't be casual about it. If you want to be a photographer, you have to constantly be taking photos, even if it's not necessarily photos of the thing that you want to be taking photos of. 90% of what I shoot in the studio is maternity photos, and at no point did I ever set out to be a maternity photographer. But it just so happens to be the case that apparently I'm really good at maternity photography, and people keep reaching out for maternity photos, and that pays bills, So what am I gonna do? Say no to that? I'm a portrait photographer, but I feel like maternity is a lot more specific, and I don't know. I just kind of fell into that. Even sports, player portraits. I never signed up for that. I didn't set out to do that. I like portraits. I like fashion. I like product photography. Even I like commercial stuff. But this is what it is. This is where I am. I'm not gonna say no to it because it's not necessarily what I want to do, and I've grown to love all these things. I like being creative. I like trying new things out, and sometimes you wind up realizing that the thing that you wanted to do isn't necessarily the thing that you enjoy doing. So you might as well go for it. Swing for the fences, So yeah, if you're just getting into photography, if you just got your first camera, don't stress out about upgrading, or if you're looking for a camera, don't stress about getting the best camera. Just get yourself something nice, Focus on learning the fundamentals, try to understand how lighting and how shadows work, not just flashes and strobes if you happen to have one of those, but natural lighting as well. Learn to play with the camera in different environments and get dope photos in all of these different types of environments. Don't just focus on, when the sun is out and everything looks pretty. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations and figure it out. Get creative with it and keep on getting creative with it. Be consistent, bring your camera everywhere, and don't wait to be inspired. Just do the thing and inspiration will follow, motivation will follow. And moreover, if you're looking to make this a profession, if you're looking to make money off of this, then treat it like a profession. Hold yourself to a standard. Have your camera with you and be the photographer that you want to be. Don't just be that guy that got a camera for Christmas and it collects dust on your desk until somebody asks about it. All right, well, hopefully you found some value in this video. I know I definitely could have when I first started, which is why I'm making it now, to maybe help some of you guys out. If you liked the video, guys, hit that like button, drop a comment down below, and maybe consider subscribing. Or not, maybe you thought this video was dumb. If you did, also go ahead, drop a comment, let me know. I'm trying to figure out what's the direction I want to take this channel in, you know? So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Peace.